Your travel may be affected this week, this month, and even over the next several months. Green card holders and even naturalized U.S. citizens may see more questions, longer wait times, and additional screening at the airport. Why? Because when there is serious conflict in the Middle East and broader international tension, border and airport screening often becomes more intense. Based on my own experience as a green card holder, I can tell you that during periods of conflict or heightened security, travelers can face more secondary inspection and more detailed questioning. In this video, I want to share 5 things you should know if you are a green card holder or a naturalized U.S. citizen and you are leaving the country or trying to return to the United States. I also want to share practical solutions so you can better navigate international travel during a time like this. Whether you are heading out of the country or coming back in, I'm your immigration attorney. But before I became an immigration attorney, I was a green card holder first, and before that, I was a student visa holder. So I understand what it feels like to travel under pressure, and I understand what it feels like to worry about how you will be treated at the airport. So let's jump right into it. The first thing you absolutely need to know is that green card holders generally have the right to return to the United States. Why? Because you have already gone through the process of becoming a lawful permanent resident. However, there are still certain standards you must maintain when you come back into the country. One of the biggest issues is whether you still maintain your residency here. In other words, the United States should be your primary home. That means the government may look at whether you actually live here more than anywhere else, and whether your time outside the country suggests that you may have abandoned your residence. People often talk about the 6-month rule, and yes, that issue has existed for years. But the real difference now is that enforcement is more active, and there is more attention being paid to travel patterns. In the past, some people could travel without much concern, but now, especially with a more aggressive enforcement environment, your travel history is being reviewed much more closely. If you are outside the United States for a long time and you do not have a strong explanation for why you were away, the government may question whether you still intended to keep your green card. In some situations, officers may even ask you to sign Form I-407, which is a form used to abandon lawful permanent resident status. That is something you should be extremely careful about. You should never rush into signing anything like that without understanding the consequences. The situation becomes even more complicated during a time of conflict. If you are coming from a region affected by war, or if your recent travel history includes countries that are under closer scrutiny, you may experience additional delays and more questions. If your travel history shows connections to regions of concern, or if the government sees family or associates who have traveled from those places, that can also lead to more screening. That does not mean you did anything wrong. It simply means you should be prepared. Keep your documents organized, keep proof of your ties to the United States, and be ready to explain your travel clearly and honestly. Number 2. The scrutiny is higher overall. There is simply more checking, more review, and more data being used during the screening process. In recent years, there has been a broader expansion of identity verification technology at ports of entry, including airports, land borders, and seaports. That means the process is more advanced than it used to be, and officers may compare your travel record, your identity, and your prior entries or exits in a much more detailed way than before. Some travelers say this has all been around forever, but what people often miss is that the scale and consistency of the screening have changed. It is not just about taking a fingerprint or snapping a picture when you enter. The government is now using more tools to confirm identity, monitor travel patterns, and identify potential issues in real time. That may include checking prior trips, reviewing whether someone overstayed a visa in the past, and looking for possible security concerns tied to certain routes, countries, or patterns of movement. For green card holders and naturalized citizens, that means the airport experience can feel much more intense. Officers may ask you more questions about where you have been, how long you stayed abroad, who you traveled with, where you live, where you work, and what your ties are to the United States. In some cases, they may want more detail if they see something in your travel pattern that does not fit what they expect. The more international movement involved, the more likely you are to experience some delay. This also means there can be more opportunities for people to be referred to secondary inspection. While not everyone will be affected, more people are getting pulled aside than before because the system is designed to look deeper. In some situations, that leads to more overnights, more delays, and more stress. I have seen that in my practice. I have seen travelers who were otherwise lawfully present, but still ended up waiting much longer because they were flagged for additional review. That is why you need to approach travel carefully right now. Another thing to keep in mind is that your words matter. If you are asked questions at the airport, answer honestly and directly. Do not guess. If you do not know something, it is better to say you do not remember or that you would like to clarify, rather than giving a random answer just to get through the conversation. If you are not sure how to respond and the issue is serious, you should try to speak with an attorney as soon as possible. Anything you say can be documented and used in future review. If you provide inconsistent information about your travel history, your background, or your activities, that can create problems. Number 3 is secondary inspection, and I want to spend a little more time on this because people often underestimate it. Secondary inspection is an additional layer of review. It is not necessarily a sign that you did something wrong, but it is a place where officers can ask more questions and dig deeper without holding up the entire line. They may move you to another room, ask for more documents, and compare what you say with the records they already have. This can be especially important for conditional green card holders. If you have a 2-year green card and you are still in the process of removing conditions, you already have a status that requires extra care. In secondary inspection, officers may look more closely at whether you are still meeting the requirements of your residency. They may also compare your travel with that of a spouse, former spouse, or other family member if there is a related immigration file. They sometimes cross-reference information from people who are connected to you, and that can lead to additional questions. I have seen cases where a conditional resident traveled with a spouse or former spouse, and that travel became part of a broader review of their marriage history. In some situations, officers may start questioning whether the relationship was genuine, whether the marriage was entered into for immigration purposes, or whether the evidence supports the story in the file. That is why secondary inspection can be so serious. It is not just a random delay. It can become a place where the government decides whether it wants to investigate your case more deeply. They may also ask about your employment history, your tax filings, your prior arrests, or any other issues they believe are relevant. Even if something was sealed, expunged, or resolved in another context, immigration screening may still bring it back into the conversation. That is especially true if you never fully addressed it in immigration court or with immigration counsel. If the officer believes there is a problem, they may issue a notice to appear or refer the case for further processing. So if you are sent to secondary inspection, stay calm. Speak respectfully. Answer truthfully. Do not argue. If you do not know the answer to a question, say so. If you need legal advice, request it as soon as possible. And if they ask to review your device or your belongings, understand that the process can become more complicated from there. You should know your rights, but you should also understand that refusing to cooperate without understanding the consequences can prolong the situation. So make careful decisions and get legal help quickly if necessary. Number 4 is dual citizenship and certain national ties. During times of conflict, travelers with citizenship ties to countries in or near a region of concern may experience extra questioning. That includes people who are dual citizens, people whose parents or spouses are from those regions, and people whose travel history shows repeated visits to those places. If you are a U.S. citizen, but you also hold citizenship in another country that is under increased scrutiny, be prepared for a longer process at the airport. That does not mean you will automatically have a problem. It does mean that the screening may be more intensive. If you are a naturalized U.S. citizen and you are traveling from a country that is under closer review, your flight manifest may already put officers on alert before you even arrive. In some situations, that can lead to more questions and more waiting. You may be asked why you traveled, how long you stayed, who you visited, where you live in the United States, and what your family connections are abroad. If you have dual citizenship with countries such as Yemen, Lebanon, Iran, or other countries in that region. Or if your spouse is from one of those countries, plan for possible delays. Again, this does not mean something bad is guaranteed to happen. It simply means you should be ready. Have your documents in order. Be prepared to explain your travel. Keep your answers consistent. And if you know there is a sensitive issue in your background, it is wise to consult with an attorney before you travel so you do not walk into the airport unprepared. I want to say this clearly. Do not answer questions just to end the conversation. A lot of people get tired after waiting for hours, and then they start saying things because they want to go home. That is not the right approach. Every response can matter. If you need time to think, say that you want to be accurate. If you are unsure, say so. It is better to be careful than to give an answer that creates confusion later. And number 5, social media. This is one of the biggest things people forget about. Government agencies have repeatedly made clear that online activity can be part of screening and enforcement. That means your posts, likes, comments, reposts, and even public interactions on social platforms may be reviewed more closely during periods of heightened security. If you are a green card holder or a naturalized citizen, be careful about what you post when there is a war or a major international conflict. That includes negative comments about the United States, comments that could be interpreted as supporting violence, or content that could be viewed as hostile toward protected groups or U.S. institutions. You do not want to create an avoidable problem by posting something impulsive online and then having it reviewed at the airport later. I have seen cases where a traveler was asked about a social media post or comment after returning from abroad. Sometimes officers do not even need to show the entire post right away. They may ask whether the person made a comment, liked a page, or shared content connected to a particular subject. And then they already have the username, the screenshots, or the data in front of them. That is why you have to be very aware of your online footprint. This is especially important if your social media profile contains political opinions, comments about war, controversial statements, or content that could be interpreted as inconsistent with your stated purpose of travel or your immigration status. Even if you believe a post was harmless, it may still be reviewed in a different context. So before you travel, take a moment to think about what is visible online. Clean up anything that could cause unnecessary attention. Make sure your profile settings are sensible. And remember that even if you delete a post, it may still exist in a digital record somewhere. So, to sum it up, here are the 5 things to keep in mind. First, green card holders generally have the right to return, but they still need to maintain residency ties and be careful about long absences. Second, the level of scrutiny is higher, and the screening process is more detailed than it used to be. Third, secondary inspection can lead to deeper questioning, especially for conditional residents and people with complicated travel histories. Fourth, dual citizens and people with family or country ties to regions under review may face additional questions. And fifth, social media can and does matter, so be careful about what you put online. My advice is simple: plan ahead, keep your documents ready, know your facts, and consult an attorney if there is any part of your case that makes travel risky. Do not wait until you are already standing at the airport to figure things out. The more prepared you are, the better your chances of getting through the process smoothly. If you found this video helpful and you watched all the way to the end, I appreciate you. We are going to keep making videos like this that are practical, informative, and useful as these situations continue to develop in real time. I'm Attorney. Like, share, subscribe, and you can contact us at clarklawgroup.com. I'm grateful to be able to share this information with you as things continue to unfold. We're all just doing our best. See you next week.